What's up, everyone? Welcome back. I have a special guest today. It's Chris, and we're going to talk about music, sync licensing. We're going to do a Q&A. I'm going to ask him all kinds of questions. But really quick, in the chat, say hello to Chris. Thank him for spending time with us today. And if you are tuning in, let us know where you're tuning in from. It's always fun to see our global audience. But Chris, welcome. I'm so excited to have this chat with you today. And first, before we start, I'll just give everyone a quick bio to catch up in case they haven't met you yet. But Chris has helped countless indie songwriters get their music placed in top shows, movies, and advertisements. He has earned the reputation as the go-to guy for indie artists looking to get their songs into TV and film, which is fantastic because I know a lot of you guys are wondering about this specifically. And Chris started out as an award-winning music producer, and he wanted to find a way for indie projects he worked on to make a bigger splash. And he saw how artists could end up in charts with just one good sync placement and how lucrative the income could be. And Chris not only teaches indie songwriters how to get their music heard by top supervisors, but he actually introduces them to the gatekeepers. So Chris is a guy that you really want to know. And we're going to take questions as well. How's it going, Chris? I'll let you talk now.
It's going great, Ryan. Thanks so much for having me. This is great. I of course love talking sync, and I try to help as many indie musicians as possible. Like I used to do as a music producer. I was a huge fan of indie music, so this can be great.
Amazing. We have a solid audience with us already. As more people tune in, I'll say hi to them as they come in. But we got Tony with us. What's up, Mike? Welcome. Hey, Mark. We got Empress. Robert, how's it going? Thanks for tuning in, Gary. And I'm so pumped for this convo. I just want to start with the basics, okay? So a lot of us here, a lot of us tuning in, we already have heard the term sync licensing. And so what is it about sync that makes it such a buzzword for independent musicians? Like, why is it so popular and important?
Right. Okay. So I'll give you two answers to that. The very first one, sort of the simplest one that not a lot of people know or have conceived of, is that, with the demise of the major labels, at least in terms of their reach, right? There's still major labels around. Of course, we still have Taylor Swift's and all of that stuff. So they're still doing fine, but they pale in comparison to the way they used to be. And essentially the avenues for people to get out there now in terms of online, you've got choices, right? You're not really putting posters on poles anymore. You're not jumping into a tour van typically. I mean, people are still doing that, but it's not the main way. You can do it online. You can try to get a following on social. You can, try to get fans, get Spotify spins and promote, as much as you can online. But people are also realizing how difficult it is if you don't have a good tool for that. It's slow. It takes a long time to do. That's just the nature of it. Sync licensing is something that is such a huge vehicle, to get your music out there. If you think about getting into one good show or one good ad or a movie, you're in front of potentially millions of people. And, your song, they're playing a part of your song. They're usually not playing the whole thing unless you have an end credit, but it doesn't matter. I'm sure you've been on lots of shows, movies and ads. We've heard a cool track and you're like, man, that's great. Now, a fraction of those millions of people potentially who are watching that are going to be Shazamming your stuff. They're going to be trying to find out who you are so they can put you in the playlist. And even like if it's if you can imagine if it was 20% only of the audience that was doing that, or even 10 out of millions, you think about the hundreds of thousands of bumps that you're going to get, in your fan base, right? So it can be a huge way to put your music out, and you can land in the charts with one good sync placement. And then the other one, so the other kind of answer to this is that it's also very lucrative potentially. So you can sometimes, if on lower levels, you're making like $500 or something like that, for a sync placement. I've gotten artists $30,000, like $30,000, $20,000, $10,000. You often even get in the thousands of dollars anyway, if it's like a medium sized one, like $5,000 is kind of a nice, good spot for a good sync placement. You start adding those up over time, and the ease at which you can put it out when you're promoting your band online and all that, it just takes time and effort and answering and connecting. Sync licensing is just literally about having a step-by-step plan and being able to connect with the right people who can actually put your music into those shows, movies, and ads. And that's basically it. So it's a huge result for a low amount of work, but you got to work smart, not harder.
Yeah, it's a massive billboard for your music. The audience is built in already, and you get to benefit from that. And just to clarify for the people listening, we're not talking about orchestral music. We're not talking about, soundtrack music. These are actual songs with music and lyrics from artists, from bands, right? Or is it both? Check 1, 2. Are you with me, Chris? Can you hear me?
Yeah. You disappeared there for a minute, but
Oh, no, no, no. I'll ask my question again. I just
yeah.
want to confirm that these are actual songs with music, and lyrics, right? They're not just instrumentals, right? Or could they be both?
Oh, as soon as you said, I want to confirm, and then it froze out again. Sorry about that.
Oh, no. Let me make sure my camera is at a good resolution. Let's see. Okay, let's try that. Yeah, I was just confirming that this is music with lyrics, correct?
Yeah, so there's two ways that your songs can get into TV and film. Typically, they're using at least a part of the instrumental only version. So you've got your master, the one that you mixed, and you got your vocal in and stuff like that. And then you've got your instrumental only, which is essentially the same track stripped of the vocal. So you just, when you're mixing, you just mute the vocal and the, any sends or anything effects and stuff. And then make sure that you're just getting your instrumental only. What they love to do is take your song and cut the instrumental only in, and then maybe at the end of a scene, when you can imagine like a couple in a park in the winter at night, totally making this up, and they're talking. They don't want your singing, right, your lyrics over the dialogue, so they're talking or whatever, and maybe in the scene they jump up and then they leave. They end up leaving and walking away, and then your lyric part, they chop in the lyric part, and that's what comes in, and that's how they do that.
Gotcha. So, okay, so we need to have the final song, also an instrumental version. What else does an artist need to be ready for an opportunity like this so their music can actually get synced?
You don't need a lot in materially, right, to do this. You need your master recording. It's got to be well produced, obviously, a well written song. And when I talk about production being well produced, I'm not talking about the latest Adele record or something. It just has to sound as good as everything else getting into TV and film. And it's sort of a great way, kind of a little hack you can use to figure out if your song, your track is ready for TV and film, is to put it into a playlist with your heroes. Like make a playlist and then put in a bunch of other artists that you love, and then put it on and on random, and go and do something else. Go cook dinner, just listen to it, driving in your car. Don't pay super close attention to it, but just let it flow by like you'd listen to kind of background music. When your song comes along, gauge your initial feeling, your very first feeling about when it comes on. How do you feel mixed into this playlist? Is it something that is like perfect and you feel like this is great? It's flowed really nicely from one to the other. Then you're golden. If it doesn't, maybe it's a drop in energy, or the mix doesn't sound quite as full as you'd like, or whatever, is striking you. That's actually good to know, because now you know what to fix. And because could you imagine if you didn't do that, or just kind of went with things, rose-colored glasses, and you were trying to get your songs out there, not only to TV and film, but to agents and labels, and even getting new fans, and it's just failing? I mean, you don't know why. You want to know why. You always want to do it step by step and build it out so that you're standing at the top of the mountain when you're pitching your music to music supervisors and the people who run the sync world at the top.
Actually, yeah, that's I'm glad you mentioned music supervisors, because these are the people who are actually going to listen to your track at the end of the day and make the decision, right? And
yes. So actually the way it works is music supervisors are hired by studios, TV studios, movie studios, or on projects. Even if it's an indie film, they might hire a music supervisor, on contract or whatever. And the music supervisor's job is to, one, clear music, meaning that any music that the studio says we want to use, right? I'm doing a big, Marvel movie or something, and like, we want, Guns N' Roses or something in this one. The music supervisor's job is to go and contact, the publisher or whoever's controlling the publishing for the Guns N' Roses song and clear it, cross the T's, dot the I's, sign the contracts and all that. The other side, the other half of their job is procuring the music. They go and find cool music that they can bring to the showrunners, which are the producers and the directors, and they say, this is what we think would be really cool in here. And because their job is always to be searching for music, they really can dive deep and, crate dig and really figure out really cool songs that can get into TV and film and bring that to the showrunners. The ultimate decision makers are the directors and the producers, and they usually sit in a spotting session with the music supervisor, which is basically a session where they have the movie up, then they put the song underneath, and then they watch the scene. And then if they love it, then they okay it, and then the song gets into TV and film. So ultimately, even though the showrunners make the final decision, the supervisors have a huge impact on what gets into TV and film.
Yeah, that makes sense, because it makes sense why you said that the production has to, be top quality, because they're literally putting your song in the scene, comparing it with other options side by side. And you don't want something as simple as technical production, audio production, to be the deal breaker when your song is good and they're already considering it, but it just doesn't sound good enough to be in a professional film.
Yeah, totally. I mean, ultimately, so to back to your sort of first question, materially what you need a good, well-written song, a well-recorded track. And, then you've got to essentially connect with the people who can make it happen. There's a few ways of getting your music into TV and film, right? There's libraries, agents, and music supervisors. Those are the three main paths that people take. The reason I went on the music supervisor path was that, after this, call, anybody could jump onto a library, a non-exclusive one, and upload their songs and sign the terms of use and put their music in there. The problem with that is that almost all of the libraries out there, the good ones, have a huge number of tracks. Some of them have millions of tracks, millions of songs on there. So you're putting your music into this huge ocean of songs, and then you're hoping someone discovers it, somebody comes across it, and even if they narrow in on kind of what you do, your genre and your style, there's a whole bunch of more people in there. And then there's also, production writers who are in libraries, and they just pump out all kinds of different stuff all the time to sort of imitate what they think is working in TV and film. So it is a huge kind of a lottery, honestly, to play to be, frank about it.
Yeah.
Agents, on the other hand, are more proactive. Agents will definitely go out and do that. Exclusive libraries, so there's a difference between non-exclusive and exclusive libraries. They're a little bit like agents as well. And the only difference between a non-exclusive library and an exclusive library is non-exclusive means that you can upload your song to the library, and then you can do anything you want with it. You can go and shop it to other supervisors or other agents or whatever while the library has it. If you sign an exclusive deal with an exclusive library, it means that you're giving them exclusivity, that they're the only ones that are allowed to shop it out there, because they don't want you competing with them, right? So they say, if we do this for you, exclusive libraries tend to be higher end, tend to be a little bit more proactive than non-exclusive libraries. They can be a good thing. Again, huge rosters of songs typically, though. And so you're just a needle in a haystack, essentially. And the agents are very similar. It's even more personal. They reach out to their contacts and try to, get music into TV and film and so on. But unless you're on the front burner, or you're like the popular band that's blowing up right now or something like that, it's again kind of a lottery. So early on, I figured out, if you can connect with the actual people who do it, with no middle person, without the library, without the agent, you can go straight to the supervisor, who ultimately are the people who place the music in there, then that's got to be the best solution. But then it was well, are they going to answer it? They're inundated. Everyone's sending them songs all the time. So isn't that a lottery too? Isn't that so how do we get around that? And so what I did is I set about starting to get relationships with music supervisors. And that is key. It's kind of who you know, unfortunately. And so I went out there and started going to everything I was invited to, and, having produced music, I was trying to support the indie artists I worked with in the studio. I was tired of working really hard on a record that was, the budget wasn't as big as the major label artists I was working with. So it was kind of I did it for the love of the music, but I wanted something to happen with it. I didn't just want to do it and then it go to, a few hundred fans. I wanted to kind of make a splash. So I thought sync licensing was the way to go, and supervisors was the most direct route. And I established those relationships and grew that and grew that. And then now what I do is I take, I can't work with everybody, but I take a number of indie songwriters every year, and then I work with them throughout the year to help help them get their music ready for it, and then actually introduce them to a bunch of music supervisors, basically.
Yeah, that's like the top of the pyramid, basically. Like the worst way to do it is to get caught with the masses, like you said, a non-exclusive library where you're just one of millions of tracks. You might not even come up in a search. You're just kind of lost. And you're doing the opposite of that, which is, the handshaking, building the connections and the friendships. And I'm actually curious, to everyone tuned in, drop in the comments what you've done so far to experiment with sync licensing. Chris just outlined all of the options, and maybe you're someone who's done a non-exclusive library before. So if that's you, drop a comment. I want to know who's in the room with us. Have you been in a library before? Have you gotten any exclusive deals? Or maybe your answer is, I haven't started anything yet. And I want to know that too. Just drop in the comments just so we can keep a pulse on who's watching with us today. But going back to what you said, so you said you help independent musicians actually, meet the music supervisors, shake hands, figuratively, probably digitally, right? Tell me a little bit more about that. Like, how can independent artists connect with agents right now?
Right. So the way I do it is that every year I have a course, essentially a program that I bring people in, and it's not just a how-to program. There's so much stuff out there. It's like how to do this and how to do that. And it's also I find a lot of courses and programs out there, like you sort of pay for it and then you're kind of left on your own. It's like go through it as fast as you want, and there's not that much support. No one's really there. Mine is a lot more hands-on. So it's a lot more like going along with everybody at the same time, like one big cohort. We kind of go through it, have coaching calls all the time, tons of Q&A. I literally hang out till every question's answered. And ultimately what I'm doing is I'm getting them on the runway to introduce them to the supervisors at the end of the program, which we do. So we go through some modules and learning, and so that they are ready. Because if you're not ready, if you're just trying to get in front of a supervisor and you don't understand what they want, and you don't know the lingo, you don't understand like how to continue those relationships in those ways. They're not just personal relationships, they're business relationships. So you got to kind of understand a little bit of nuance about that. It's not rocket science, but it's important to understand. But the most important part of that whole process is actually not you. It's actually the supervisors. The supervisors are in general mistrusting of indie songwriters. Now, not in a negative way, not like, ooh, those indie songwriters. It's because lots of weird stuff can happen. So, for example, if your music's not cleared properly, and say it goes into the spotting session, and then the showrunner say, great, we're going to use this, and this is going to happen, and the song's going to go in the show, and it all gets locked in. And then somebody you recorded with that you forgot to mention or whatever, you didn't have a contract with them, you didn't have a work for hire, they come on and say, hey, I think I have some of the publishing on that song. I don't want it in that show. Or if I do, I'm going to have to fight this. And there's weird stuff like that can happen. So music supervisors are always really reticent to kind of, deal with indie songwriters one-on-one for largely a big part of that is that reason. And so what I try to do is to say, well, okay, if music supervisors are going to, publishers and labels and select libraries and select agents, how do I become that go-to person? And those are the relationships that I built. And I built that trust level with them. So when I show up with my new, bevy of awesome indie songwriters who I've already shown how this whole thing works, they trust me because I've taught them. So when they meet them, they know that the songwriters are like, oh, you're like a pro. You get everything and everything's been done right. Yeah. And that is such a key to what I do. But ultimately, I'm just connecting indie songwriters with the right people to get the music into TV and film.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Especially it's like a double negative because yeah, indie artists are unknown. So when they're on the desk of a music supervisor, literally the relationship starting at zero. But then as a category, that supervisor is thinking, oh, I've seen countless indies, basically endanger the production because they used a bad sample that they didn't clear, they didn't credit their music correctly. And I just saw in the chat that a lot of people with us tuned in today, they've tried like the taxi services, but so far nothing has gotten past the screeners. And I'm wondering if that's the issue, that there's no trust established in the pitching process. And it seems that you've solved that major roadblock that is just in the way of people starting from the ground zero. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part of it, is trying to solve that problem. But the ultimate thing, I mean, if we're just being, honest here about like the odds of getting into TV and film as an indie songwriter, just to put your stuff out there, is really low. It can happen. If it happens, it's probably going to be a one-off. It's like, oh, I got a sync in 2017, haven't had one since, or those kind of stories you hear about.
Yeah.
And or just no sync placements at all. So really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take those odds and narrow them down to a ridiculously small amount. So if you think about somebody saying, hey, what are the odds of getting into TV and film? And, we compare that to saying, what are our odds of going to the moon, on a moon mission? Well, there's like 7 billion, I don't know, close to 8 billion people in the world now. It's probably like, for me, it's probably like 1 in whatever 8 billion people, just like probably for the rest of us. But what about an astronaut who's trained by NASA? What's their odds of going to the moon?
Yeah.
Way, way higher, And that's the thing. I can't guarantee sync placements for people, but I can certainly put you in front of the top people in Hollywood who will meet you in person and listen to your music. So that's what I can absolutely do. Actually, just one student put it at one time as like, Chris gives you the pickaxe and the shovel and then brings you over and points to where the gold is. But I don't do the digging. So.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, nothing can replace the hard work that the artist needs to do. You can't just drag them by their scruff into the right rooms. But yeah, I wanted to give you an opportunity just to share with everyone in the room, like if they liked what you said, and if they're interested in maybe cutting the timeline short, actually introducing themselves to music supervisors the right way, what should they do to connect with you? I already saw that someone in the comment already said they wanted to reach out to you. So if someone in the room wants to reach out, where can they go? And then also, as Chris is answering that, we're going to do some Q&A. So if you have any questions for Chris, feel free to start typing that in the chat right now. But Chris, let everyone know if they want to dig into sync placements and learn that industry, what should they do to connect with you?
Okay, so the quickest and easiest way to do that was I would just say this would be a great resource for you that you can do at the same time, that connecting into the Sync Songwriter community. We have an awesome community. I treat it like a family. So I'm not one of these people who's like, oh, you're just an email address and sending emails out trying to sell you stuff all the time. We don't run things like that here at all, like that. We're more of a family and we're there to support. In fact, I'm doing a mini series right now. Actually, if you join in the community, Sync Songwriter community, I'm doing a very special one-time only free mini series on literally the 5 steps to get your music into TV and film. So if you jump into our community, that's the best way to do it. The way to get into our community, I would say, is just go to our website, syncsongwriter.com. And there are a couple of really cool things. There's one is like a thing you can download, which talk about those 5 steps on one piece of paper. So you can get a really good vision on what actually works. These are steps that I just didn't invent and pull out of the air. These are ones that were developed by actually my music supervisor friends that helped me out with it. So those are awesome. And number 2, metadata. Metadata is so important to have in your files. So let's talk about how you're going to send your files. You always send MP3s. That's the currency of the sync world. It's not sending full res WAV files right away. They're too big. So you always are sending and using MP3s to begin with. MP3s, of course, can contain what's called metadata, means basically just information within the file, right? Which you can, your name and like the track name and all that stuff. There are specific things you need to put in your metadata that are very important that supervisors need. And a lot of indie musicians don't know what to put, or they put it wrong. And if it's not there, that's it. You're not going to qualify. So I have a little cheat sheet on our website where you can just go there and download it and see exactly what you need. Again, I think it's on one page, and it literally tells you, or maybe two, but it tells you exactly what you need to put in and nothing more. And that's not complicated. So those two things, just go to syncsongwriter.com. And maybe, you can throw the link in the chat there, and they can just click that, head over there and hop into the Sync Songwriter community. And it would be great to hang out, with you and get in on this free mini series things that I'm doing, which is massively people have been loving it. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, that link is already in the chat. If you want to learn more about Sync, it's a great place to go. Highly recommend it. Get your questions down in the comments. We're going to start pulling those up on screen soon, but I wanted to say my question first. It's about metadata, actually. Yeah. And what is the point of metadata? Is it for music supervisors to be able to search for your song really quickly? And do you miss out on visibility by not having metadata? Like how does it work from a sync perspective from supervisor?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I mean, the fundamental purpose of it is really to connect with you, right? That it's going to have your name and your contact information. You don't know how many times I've heard from my music supervisor friends about like, hey, I got this track and I thought it was great, and I put it into my filing system. So a little secret for you, all supervisors have a filing system that they use. Some even use their inbox and stuff, but they might put it in whatever platform, stars beside it, whatever they use and how they rank the songs that they really like and they think that are cool. And they do searches within those platforms. So they might search for like summer fun pop, and that will pop up. If that's in your metadata, right, that's going to come up. And so these are things that you need to have within your metadata, which I explained on that cheat sheet on the website, syncsongwriter.com. If you download it there, it'll tells you these things. And so the metadata is really important to be found, and also to give them information about things that they might want to know right away. Is it a clean version? Is it not? Is there a publisher involved, which isn't a big deal, but they like to know that ahead of time sometimes. There's a bunch of different things within the metadata, and is why it's so important.
Yeah, that's huge, actually. So good. I was wondering that too. If it's cool with you, I'd love to pull up some questions from the chat.
Absolutely.
I saw a lot of good ones. First one's from Rob. He's asking, do music supervisors want new compositions, or can the date of release, I'm assuming, of the song, can it be an older composition?
It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. And I'll extend your question, Rob, to all of the, things, the other questions outside of that, like what about different genres? What about different people singing on my song that, that wasn't me? Isn't going to matter. I don't have a presence. I haven't released my song yet. Is that going to matter? Does it help me? All of that mostly doesn't matter. They only care about the song. They only care about what the song is going to do in the scene of the movie, show, or ad. So if they get a great song and they're like, this is awesome, right? They cross their fingers and they hope that they can clear it easily, and that you'll accept their sync fee, whatever that sync fee is. And then you get the back end royalties too. Don't forget about those. Every time it airs, you get money that keeps coming in, which is fantastic. Yeah. And ultimately, they don't care if you've released your song before, if it's unreleased, if it's new. They care a little bit about the fact that if you're an artist, as opposed to, say, a production writer. They kind of they've got a soft spot for artists because they're either music people themselves. They love supporting indie music to begin with. The other cool thing, which is not a lot of people know, but I do because I know a bunch of music supervisors, is that they love getting the scoop. They love getting the scoop for the first time on some music. So they don't like going to what one of them calls the faceless libraries, where it's just like a bunch of music. They love the fact that there's somebody behind the music and that they know that they can't find it anywhere else but through that artist. So that's another reason they love working with me at Sync Songwriter, is that they love the fact that they can come here and find a lot of artists who are not, out there in a bunch of libraries, who don't have big agents and stuff like that, because they know they're coming there like, this is like a treasure trove of original music. And they get the feather in their cap and the kudos for like everyone saying, where do you find all your cool music that no one has? zip. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to get into the mindset of the music supervisor. What's going to make them win, right? And make
Exactly.
them be really good at their jobs, please their bosses, which is, basically the
Yeah.
director, I'm assuming,
Yeah, and
right?
Ryan, let me like put that in an even easier way to you're bang on that. You really, what you're trying to do is you're trying to help them do their job, and you're trying to give them what they're looking for when they're looking for it. If you
Mhm.
can do those three things, you are like leaps and bounds ahead conceptually on how to get your music into TV and film.
That's great. That's good. We got another really good question. I'm going to paraphrase it, but DJ is asking, what would be an example of a song or piece of music that a music supervisor just finds unusable? Like, what would be a bad example
Oh
of?
yeah, that's easy. I mean, one would be, first off, the very first thing would be like the production, the
Mm,
production level. So some of you may feel like, I can't produce my songs well enough, or I don't think my production's good enough because I hear like some big artists in TV and film, and I don't sound like that, and I'm just trying to learn at home. So you need to be above a certain bar, right? And it doesn't have to be that high. It's not that high, but you have to be above a certain bar. It can't sound like you're recorded it on a 4-track in a garage, and
yeah.
unless it's a really like particular kind of piece they're going for, that typically they're not. So the best way, my best advice to you, is that if you're in that position where you're learning how to record at home because you're like, well, it's free and I don't want to spend money at studios, is first, don't waste great songs on mediocre production. I already
Mm,
did that. When I started out, that's exactly what I did. Is I thought I was better than I was when I first started working in the studio. I had a computer and a microphone. I started like, very humbly recording my
yeah.
friends for beer in a cabin, and all of that. And I thought I was okay because I had spent time with some producers and I learned some things. But I wasted a lot of effort and time thinking I'm going to release music that because I'm good enough to produce this on my own. And I really wasn't.
Mm,
What I should have done, and this is my advice to you, is hire someone within your budget to do this while you're learning. Now, the key here is not just like, okay, so Chris, you're saying I got to like hire somebody and spend this money and then learn how to do it. And then basically I've, wasted the money because, you know, I know the song's good, but I'm learning and spending money at the same time. The way to look at it is that you're not going to a recording course and learning kind of just generally how to record. What you're doing is you're getting someone to work on your music specifically. You're learning how to record your music because they're working
mm,
on your music. So you can ask them for the plugins and the plugin chains and all of that, when you're working on it. And then you can go and say, wow, look at that and say that works really well on my vocal. I mean, I would never have dreamed that up. This is a professional producer, mix engineer. I'm just going to hit save on that, and now you've got this
yeah.
awesome chain for your vocal. So you got to think in those terms. And lastly, time is money, right? Time is money. And so whether you're spending time, it's still costing you, or you're spending the money. So think about that as you're sort
Yeah.
of going with production as a solution. So that's kind of number one. Other things would be, just the usual kind of, hot topics, right? Race, religion, blah, blah, politics, all that stuff that is
Mhm.
obviously, or, things that you generally in a public setting, you're not just sort of going out there and espousing kind of views that I think we all know that inherently, those are subjects that can be talked about. We don't typically talk about them in public right off the cuff or anything, unless we're a politician maybe or something. Those can be
Yeah.
problematic, right? Because if they want to steer clear of that kind of thing, then there's songs where you might need a clean version. That's easy, right? If you're swearing in your songs or they're about something a little edgy, you can always fix that. That's not a big deal. But I would say the number one thing is the production. They'll decide within 4 seconds of hearing your song of whether they're going to continue listening to it.
Yeah, that's true. It's easy to clean up a track, from profanity. Skechers commercial doesn't want a bunch of F-bombs in it, but if the production is bad, then there's really nothing you can do to fix that and save the opportunity. It makes so much sense.
Yeah.
We got another great question from Empress. She's asking, what is a sync fee? What is that?
Yes. Yeah. So sync fee is basically the money that you get, the lump sum of money you get right away when they license your music. So essentially, once you sign the deal and you're going to license your music, they send you a check. well, they're transferring it into your bank account, but you get a sync fee. And that's just part of the licensing deal. You're saying to them, I'll let you use my music in your show, movie, or ad. And they say, great, thank you. And we're going to pay you for it. That's the sync fee. So you get that sync fee. And that sync fee can be anywhere from $500 for like an indie film. I mean, maybe you're doing your friend's indie film for free, but it, can be like $500 for something low end, all the way up to, I mean, you can go way into the six figures and stuff if you're a big star. Yeah. But like I said, I've gotten artists $30,000, $20,000, $10,000. Those were big placements. But all that to say is that the sync fees are all over the place, depending on the size of the show, how long they're going to use your song, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then the sync fee actually doesn't include any of the residual royalties that get generated also, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So you also, on top of the sync fee, what you do is you get your royalties from the PRO, performance royalties, so that every time, say you're in a show and it re-airs, every time it re-airs, you get royalties for that. So it's really cool. You get the sync fee up front. Then, I don't know, a month later, you get another sync. And then a month after that, you're still getting money from your first sync, coming in the back door through your PRO, which is awesome.
Yeah. And that also happens for commercials as well, right? It's not just TV.
Yeah, it's the only thing that's really exempt from that are movies in the US only. And I don't know how they got around it. Somehow the movie studios got around paying for, if they show it in a if it's streaming and stuff, you do, but if it's showing on like in a theater and stuff, you don't get royalties for that. And I'm not sure how they legislated that, but that's just a weird thing. But typically that's fine. Usually you get a big sync fee. If you're in a movie that's in a theater, usually the sync fee is substantial.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it compensates. They basically pay you that royalty up front, even though it's not written in the law that you'll get.
It could have been their argument. Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, guys, keep the questions coming. I see a lot more. We're going to get to them. Next is from Lauren. She has a good question about outreach. She's asking, if you reach out to a supervisor directly via email or social media, what can you do to stand out? I'm assuming they get so many emails every day. I mean, you've already figured this out. What would you say to Lauren?
Well, I guess the first thing I would say is that, you're welcome to try to reach out to supervisors, right? I mean, cold calling them is a way to do it. It's rarely successful because there's so many people, and not just musicians who are doing it. There's labels and agents and libraries and publishing companies. Everybody's trying to get their song in a TV and film. So the supervisors are human. So they kind of put a wall up, and they kind of usually go after their go-to source. They rarely sort of entertain the idea of going to their inbox and hearing some stranger's music who sent it, because they're getting 100 a day, so that becomes a problem there. So the one thing though I would say is that don't try to connect with them on social media or like LinkedIn or places like that in general. It's may have worked before. You might have a story you heard that works and so on. Mostly the supervisors I know don't like that, because they like to be, it'd be like showing up at their house or, getting spam on your phone, right? I mean, everyone hates that intrusion. And so they're trying to be in a safe place, in the social, like safe. I mean, like just socializing with their friends or people who are in sync and stuff. And all of a sudden they get hit up by somebody saying, hey, place my song. They don't really appreciate that too much. So that is why I invented Sync Songwriter, was literally that major problem, is that not being able to get through to the gatekeepers. You just can't reach them. And you probably never will by just doing what you're doing. So what I do is I have those relationships, and I take you into my world, work with you so you're presentable, and I mean that in the kindest way. I want to make sure your song's recorded well, it's written properly, all the lingo, all the things you need to understand to get in front of them, and then I take you and then I introduce you.
Yeah. That's actually perfect timing, because A asked this exact question. Do you recommend any classes that an artist can start if they are literally at the beginning and they need to get connected and continue learning on this subject?
Yeah, I mean, of course I have I'm gonna be a dummy not to say my course is called The Art of the Song Pitch. And essentially that's what we do. We only open once a year though. I'm not interested in like working all the time, like crazy on a bunch of things. You know, I like to spend time with my daughter and do some, you know, family and travel and things like that. But what I try to do is every year is I buckle down and I get ready. And I love this part of the year is I open it once a year, bring the right students in, and then we move forward and we start working together and then getting their music introduced to the gatekeepers. So the course that I have at the beginning teaches you all the fundamentals and more. The difference between mine and some other courses is that I spend a lot of time trying to make it as simple as possible, where you
Mhm.
learn everything you need to know and nothing more, but you can basically come to the end of it and think that wasn't that hard, but you're an expert. You're basically, you may not have a law degree, you know, in entertainment law, but you know everything you need to know for the rest of your life to be able to get your music into TV and film.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Next question is from Sayana. I think I said that right. She's asking about the size of the music catalog. Should an artist have a lot of songs ready? What's the minimum? Can you even get involved with one song? What would be your recommendation?
That's a great question. And I get that a lot. The truth is, it doesn't matter too much. What matters is the quality. So if somebody comes to me and says, Chris, I have 500 songs I've written over 20 years, I am not in the least impressed. You know, think that's nice and a great accomplishment for them and congratulate them and be like, wow, that's good for you. I'm not impressed as the role that I am at Sing Songwriter to help them connect with supervisors, because I don't know if those songs are, you know, what does that mean? You know,
Yeah.
it's about the quality of the song. If you have a great song, you only need one. And
Mm.
there's been so many times. There's a woman who she basically moved from the Philippines to Canada, didn't know anything about the sort of like how things work here, and she was just kind of, you know, new immigrant, working everything out, wanted to get her music into TV and film. Sent me basically a file from her iPhone. She recorded on her smartphone and was basically her vocal and keyboard. And I took that. I have an online studio because I produce music all my life. I have this online studio and I produced her music and a song, and she ended up getting like 4 sync placements and good ones too from that song. So it was just one. But of course, the more you have, the better, right? If you can be the Beatles and have a bunch of really good songs, that's better than 2. But
Yeah.
it really doesn't matter. You can start with one song and be rocking it. And the cool thing about, you know, if you end up working with me in the future in the art of the song pitch, I always look at it as a stepping stone thing because I cover everything in order. So you can actually write and produce your songs using everything you learn through the actual program, because it's not all condensed into 1 week, you
Mm.
know, it's stretched out. So you can kind of go through and produce the perfect music, basically.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because music supervisors, I mean, they're looking for the one. Like it's a professional project. Their reputation's on the line for picking a song. It's got to be good. You know, it's got to be top quality. It makes a lot of sense. Next, another question from DJ. He's asking about royalty-free samples. What are the rules? Can you use them?
Yeah, so it's really important that you look at the terms of use. Royalty free is typically means it's licensed, so you can use them. But you've got to you just check, make sure that they're cleared. Usually, there's a bunch of samples. All the ones in your DAW, like in your, you know, Logic and Pro Tools and all of that,
Mhm.
they've all been cleared. You can use those, and you don't owe anybody anything, and they're there. They've been licensed to you. So you just need to make sure that it's been licensed. That's basically it. If you have samples that are not licensed, but you know, all the typical popular collections, sample collections, are typically totally open and free to use.
Yeah. So yeah, and some of them are subscription based too. Like if you have a subscription to a sample library, all of those are cleared because in the subscription fee, you're paying for that license, right?
Yes, exactly. But the ultimate, you know, is to look at the terms of use and it'll say right in there, you know,
Mhm.
these have been cleared or something, or you can use them freely, whatever their terminology is. But always check that out. And the other thing to remember about sort of samples like that is to kind of vary them a little bit. Like, don't always just use the sample because everybody's using them. So you kind of
Mm.
want to go and change them up a little bit sometimes. So just so you don't sound like everybody else, if it's say a popular sample set.
Yeah, that's smart. And it seems like the danger zone would be just like Googling for a sound or like ripping a sound off of YouTube, that's not cleared at all. And that's going to get you in
Correct.
trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Hope that helps, DJ. Great questions, everyone. We're going to keep going for about 10 more minutes. So make sure to get your questions in. Chris is an incredible resource. So make the most of this time. Another question from Mike. He's asking about varying genre in an artist. Is it worthwhile to pursue sync for someone in Mike's situation?
Right. So let me get this clear. So basically, sounds like you write a lot of different genres, right? Different things. You're not focused on one. So there's no problem with that. But here's the trick. This is something I invented and works like a charm. Supervisors love this part. Is that when you take your catalog, what you're going to do, and I teach this in the course, is you need to target your catalog. So you're not taking your songs, throwing it against the wall, shotgun approach, spaghetti in the wall, see what sticks. That's like a lottery. That's just too random, right? You need to target your music. And remember what I said earlier about you want to give them what they're looking for when they're looking for it. So what you want to do is you want to figure out, how do I get my music, to them, and it's the right music that they're looking for. So a very quick way to do this, and I'll get back to your multi-genre thing, is you can go to a website called TuneFind. Once you know who you sound like, say you have a specific style, then you go to TuneFind, and TuneFind lists all the shows that are generally out there and all the music that's been in them and all the bands and everything. So you can literally go to TuneFind, search for a particular band that you sound like, and look at all the shows they've been in. Be like, well, if they license them and I sound similar to them, or I could be in a playlist with them, they might license me. You've already started targeting, right? That's just one basic, super simple way. I teach a lot more of that in the course in much more depth. But the bottom line is, if you're multi-genre, then you're saying, well, Chris, how do I go and do that? Because I write this and this and this, and I sound different all the time. What you want to do is take your music and put it into silos. So you want to pretend you've got these silos of music, and you want to be essentially like a label. You want to call yourself, label X, and then you've signed these artists, A, B, C, D artists, right? And so really what you're doing is you're always working and pitching one silo at a time. You're not mixing them. You're not mixing between them. So you're taking silo B, and then because there's opportunities, and then you're going to TuneFind and so on. In this example, you're finding the music and shows, and the supervisors and shows that suit the songs in silo B. And then you're doing the same thing and repeating the exercise for A and C. So you're always just working with one silo at a time. So that's all you got to do, is take your music, divide it up, pretend you're 3 different people, and then target those according to the silo, essentially.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. Like, give them what's relevant. Like we said earlier, they need to succeed at their job. Just giving them a bunch of random stuff and hiding what they need is not going to help. Yeah, that's really helpful. Hope that helps, Mike. Let's see. Good questions coming in. I don't know if we'll get to all of them in time, but let's do Mark's question next. He has a production question on getting that pro quality sound. Where would you suggest looking for a producer?
Oh, I mean, there's websites online that you can do it. I'm not actually out there perusing for those things because I have my own online studio and so on. But you can get online and you can look. There's websites that have producers that you can go and hear what they do and find someone within your budget. That's super easy.
Yeah.
So and if you're interested in working with me for any reason at all, the studio is called Sundown Sessions Studio. So Sundown Sessions Studio. If you just go there and look that up, you can hear some stuff that we've done too. And but otherwise, I'm not here schlepping my studio. Just go online and Google for the kinds of producers that you're looking for, and find someone who's good at what your kind of music. Figure out like, hey, I want to sound like this, and find the producers who are good at that genre, and then look for someone in your budget. That's basically the best way to go.
For sure. Yeah. Mark, I'm assuming that you're not in the Nashville area or LA, because there's tons of studios all over town here in Nashville. But I've also used like a site like soundbetter.com, which could be a good option, but it's kind of expensive at the same time. So but thanks for that answer, Chris.
Yeah.
Jesse's asking about licensing Christmas songs. It's the right time of year to ask this question. Is
It's
there anything that we need to know about that?
Yeah, there is. It's actually the wrong time to be asking this question. Yeah, there's a saying in LA. It's Christmas in July,
Mm.
and what that means is that's when they're kind of starting to work on all the Christmas shows that are going to come up later in the year. So now there was a strike that just happened that we're all aware of, and that just ended not too long ago. So they're kind of playing catch up. Now, I'm not saying that there's like, they're already done, and I'm sure for most of them, but there could be other little shows and things that they're still rushing around to replace something. They're like, there's a problem with this. It didn't clear. I changed my mind, So it's still possible to get, Christmas music into something. We only have how many days left? 4 days left or something. But the bottom line is that, you want to look at that in the summertime. And the cool thing about that is that, Christmas songs are like evergreen. They're always relevant each Christmas. You know that. You turn your, streaming on, radio on if you're in the car and stuff. You hear the same songs you hear every Christmas going back decades. So yeah, there's no expiration date on Christmas music.
That's great. Yeah, it makes total sense because they have their production timelines. It takes a while to put these shows out, commercials out. So yeah, it makes sense that you have to work ahead. Yeah. Got an interesting question. I'm not sure if we can get into the details because we obviously can't read the contract. But so someone is trying to take 50% of her sync fee. Is this normal? What do we need to know about these businesses out there that are always offering some kind of opportunity, but we really have no reference point as to if it's even good or if something to even pursue?
Yeah. So unfortunately, like if you sign with an agent or a library, they're typically taking about half now. It didn't used to be that. It used to be around 25%, then it was 35%, then it started going up into the 40s. Now it's pretty much half. They take half the sync fee, and then a lot of them also want a part of your publishing from the song. So it's that was one big reason why I was like, I would rather just go to supervisor. Because if you go to a straight to music supervisor, you keep everything. You don't give anybody anything. You're going through a middle person and handing them half the stuff there. The worst part is I've heard about courses or programs where they say, hey, come into the program. So you pay to get in the program. And then if they get you a sync, then you pay them half the money, which to me is like, sounds like a ripoff to me. So, if you're willing to pay an agent or library half your money to do that, and you believe in that, and say you're on the front burner with an agent, and if you think about it, if they're getting you sync after sync after sync, because you're just hot stuff, everyone wants to hear your music because it was in some other commercial, or you blew up, or you're in the charts or something, and they're just like placing you all the time. Sometimes it's worth it, it's just pay the fee because you're just getting many more placements, right? But in general, for indie songwriters, that's why I'm much more interested in just introducing them, because I'm not a middle person. I don't take any fees like that. I just introduce you, through the program, and I only take a certain number of musicians at a time. But anyway, that's you've got to decide what that deal is, how you're going to work that, and see if it's worth it to you.
Yeah, it sounds like if you educate yourself on the process and meet the correct people, you can keep both sides of the pie. You can keep 100%. And signing on with something is just maybe the fast way to kind of get something going, but it's not necessarily the right way. That's what I'm kind of gathering.
It's arguably slower
Oh,
because,
really?
well, yeah, way slower, I would say. If we're talking about getting sync placements, if we're just talking about, getting your music in a position where it could be discovered somewhere, yeah, you could do that in 15 minutes after this call. You could jump on and sign on to any number of non-exclusive libraries out there.
Yeah.
But if we're talking about sync placements, it's far slower because you're probably not going to get a sync placement. In my experience with the people I work with, we've gotten tons of sync placements. So it's inevitably faster, because it's much, much, much more likely to happen for you, basically.
Yeah. If you're just thrown in a massive library, you get 0 syncs, that's infinite time waste.
Yeah, you're like a dot in the sky, It's like with all the stars, it's like, yeah.
Yeah. Well, everyone in the chat, it really appreciates your time. Lauren says, love it. Thank you, Chris. I'm excited to learn more. I'm definitely going to check out Sync Songwriter. Well, thanks for being with us, Lauren. And then very similarly, Tony's asking, when's your next course open? I think we have that on the calendar, the fee
Yeah.
and how to join. Maybe
Yeah.
all of
So
it is planned.
Yeah, so basically, it's going to be we do it every January, so it's literally coming up after the Christmas holidays. As I open the doors, and we do it once a year, as I was saying. For the course, the program's called the Art of the Song Pitch, where you come in and learn some, things about. I put you on the runway, and then I introduce you to music supervisors at the end of the program. And so essentially, that's kind of the next thing. The best thing for you to do right now is if you're interested in that. And again, I'm not here like selling courses, right? I want to work with people. I've dedicated my life to working with indie artists. And that has given me much more like taking somebody who's super talented, who doesn't have a chance in heck of getting their music out there because they're just trying to be musicians and they don't want to be business people. They don't, whatever. I love taking that music and getting it out into the world so it sees the light of day. That's why I do what I do. Sync licensing is the best way to do that, in my opinion. So ultimately, if you're that person and you want to like do something like that and you want to work with me, the best way is just to get into my circle, get into the Sync Songwriter community, which means right now go to the website syncsongwriter.com and then download anything there you download. You could jump on the mailing list there. Once you're on our mailing list, you're going to know everything that's coming up. And then you also get that free mini series that I'm doing from just my community right now, not open to the public. So
Awesome.
yeah, that'd be the best way.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, and we'll also send out a notification when it's time as well on the Indie Music Academy mailing list too, just to make sure that everyone knows when the doors open, since it is one time a year. We don't want to miss that. Deanna's asking about stems. Oh, and we only have like 3 minutes left. So let's do lightning round, huh? Let's get to all the questions.
I'll answer them quick.
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, she's asking, do you need stems? I don't have stems for some of my older songs. How important is that?
Not that important.
Okay.
It's nice to have sometimes. They're using them a little more than they used to, but it's really not a make or break. No big deal.
Awesome. Isaiah is asking, what's the most common sound music supervisors are looking for? I'd imagine it's a lot of sounds.
Yes, Ryan, you got it. You answered that correctly. There's no one sound. Pop, hip hop, country, rock. Those are the big ones. And those are the ones you'll hear mostly because that's what most people are listening to. It has nothing to do with the fact that almost any song out there that's produced properly and written well can get into sync. I know people who get meditation music into sync licensing, so they're all kinds.
Great. Alexandra's asking 2 questions. How many of your students write for sync versus just continuing their art?
Yeah, great question. So I cover both sides, but most of them are artists. Most of them have already written the songs. And here's the cool part about it, and I'll try to keep this super short. Music supervisors are looking for authenticity, believe it or not. A lot of people think it's like you got to write for sync and follow some sort of formula and like whatever. And I don't want to do it because of that. The beauty is they're looking for original music, for authentic music from real artists, right? And even if you write in your bedroom and you don't tour, you're still an artist, you're still a songwriter, right? So, or even an instrumentalist. But the bottom line is the authenticity. That's what they're looking for. So never sort of discount that. Never think that like you've got to write for sync if you don't want to. Then again, I do touch on like how to write for sync if you want to do it. And there are people who have success doing it, but you got to be good at it. And it's a different kind of thing. I'm more of a fan of writing from your heart, writing your own stuff for your fans, and then finding the home for that song. So even if you're not the hip hop, country, rock, whatever, and you're not falling into those categories, it doesn't matter. You do your targeting correctly. You find the shows where they do take it, right? There are movies that will love your stuff. You just have to find those and ignore the rest. Don't try to please everybody. Just go for the thing that they're looking for. They're looking for you, and you just need to say, here I am, essentially.
Yeah. So it sounds like being authentic is the most important thing. And it's probably the best way to combat AI music that's starting to pop up. That was Alexandra's second part. Like how dangerous is AI in sync? Is it something we even need to worry about?
I mean, right now, no. And a lot of people, jumped on the bandwagon and, there was the .com bubble and there was like, self-driving cars were supposed to happen like 5 years ago. things just take longer than we think, you know. And if you noticed, most sci-fi movies, that date's already passed. You know, it's like the
Yeah.
Terminator, and you're like, oh yeah, that was like,
Yeah, where's my hoverboard?
yeah, right, exactly. You know, Back to the Future, and we don't have flying cars yet.
Yeah.
So people are a little optimistic on that. So I think AI's got a ways to go, and it could change everything at some point, but not today. You know, it's a good line from the Tom Cruise's character in you know, Maverick, about the guys trying to fire him, right? Get him out of the Air Force. And he says, you know, the robots are taking over and all this other stuff. He says, yes, sir, but not today. So just do what you do, you know, and they still need your music.
Right. As of now, humans are still in charge.
And we're still in charge. Yes.
Diane's asking, can cover songs be licensed or only originals?
No, cover songs are great because they like the fact that they're familiar, so that if it's done well, it's done in your own way. That's the trick, not just to redo it like the original. There are sound alikes. They can save money on the master that way by doing a sound alike and doing that. But they're more interested in actual original takes on the cover. So it's not that covers are better than originals, but you certainly can license covers. But unfortunately, you don't own the publishing for it, right? So that's you don't get, you know, you don't get paid what you would normally do if it was your own song, kind of thing.
In that situation, the residuals would be cut because it would go to the original publisher.
Yeah.
And then also the sync fee would be cut because that would also go to the original publisher as well, right?
No, it depends on on what it is and the deal and who you're with and all of that stuff. It'll be a payment for the master, so you're going to keep the master payment, but that depends. But certainly the publishing, all the publishing royalties definitely go to the publisher.
Gotcha. That's really helpful. Really good. Let's see. Lightning round almost done. I think we have T's asking, is that a Lone Star on your wall?
No, I'm actually in Tennessee. It is 1 star, but I'm not in Texas. It is actually one of the 3 stars for Tennessee, I guess. And so that's
yes. Yeah. Bad year for the Titans, unfortunately. And I think we got nothing but love in the chat. I think we're good. Everyone's saying thank you for your great answers. Chris, from Jesse, she says, thanks for answering. Robert says, happy holidays. Everyone, if you want to connect with Chris, check out Sync Songwriter. I think we are good to go. Lauren says, so excited for this. Khalif says, hi, Ryan, thank you. Chris, please do a publishing breakdown live stream. Maybe that's content for the future. Thanks for that suggestion.
Cool.
And yeah, thanks so much, everyone. Thank you, Chris, for sharing your wisdom. Guys, if you have any additional questions, I'm sure there'll still be an opportunity to just drop them below this YouTube video. The replay will generate automatically on this link. Everyone, just say thanks to Chris for being here, sharing his wisdom, sharing his time. And definitely check out Sync Songwriter. And yeah, thank you again, Chris, from me. Thanks for spending time answering questions today. So I really appreciate you.
Oh, Ryan, thanks so much for having me. And thank you for the kind words, everybody. I always love doing this. This is like, I'm trying to, you know, illuminate the possibilities as an indie songwriter, because I know you're out there, you're trying to get your music out into the world, and it needs to be heard. Right. So, I love doing this. If it opens, even if we don't end up working together in the future or anything, hopefully today you got some, you know, kindles of light to say, like, you know what, I've got an idea and what I want to do with my music. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Happy holidays to everybody. And yeah.
Deanna says, thank you so much. Isaiah says, thank you. McRain says, thank you for providing this great information. You are heroes for songwriters like this. Thanks so much. And I'm so glad that your song's getting streams. Glad to always help. Empress says, thank you so much for your time. So that's it, guys. Thank you for hanging out with us. Thanks for the incredible questions, for being engaging in the chat. It's always more fun for us when you guys are involved. It makes it more of a two-way conversation. So thanks so much. We'll see you in a future stream. And be sure to hit subscribe to get notified of future talks like this. Maybe Chris will be back. And best of luck with your music, and take care, everyone. Merry Christmas, and best of luck with your music. See you, everyone.
See you later.